So welcome everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see my slides. I am consistent, if nothing else, with my slides. So let me share that with everybody. So really happy that you guys are here on our Ready for Love bonus session. And yeah, what we're going to be talking about today, just for about 30 minutes or so, is how to date as a caregiver. I appreciate both of you and a couple of other folks coming to me saying, hey, how are we supposed to date when we're trying to take care of, people we love and trying to do that? So what I figured it would be appropriate to do and helpful if it is give you all just kind of a top level kind of overview of what you can do to really kind of also balance if you do want to date again and make space for that, as well as caring for your loved ones. So let us take a look at that. And what I just kind of want to preface, with all of you lovely ladies is that this is just kind of a top level view. And so obviously during our one-on-one sessions, if you have any questions or if we have anything kind of specific to the issues that you guys are dealing with in your own lives, feel free to ask me that, or we can hold them off if you're not afraid sharing with the group till afterwards. So, hey, Suzanne, just want to let you know that we are going to have, if you want to hold your questions till the end. Yeah, so you guys ready to go? All right.
Ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Happy you guys are here. So how to date as a caregiver. So what we're going to do in this mini session is we're going to just kind of talk about just a couple of very important kind of general overviews. And that is going to be getting grounded in the reasons that you are choosing to be a caregiver. We are going to then talk about setting boundaries with the person that you are providing care to, as well as setting kind of boundaries with yourself and getting yourself kind of in a better schedule to be able to do both, to care for the people that you love, and as well as care for yourself, as well as self-care and dating and what that looks like. Getting honest with yourself that what are the reasons that we're doing the caregiving. Because I think what I see a lot of times with clients and with women that I talk to is they say, well, because I'm taking care of my mother, or because I'm taking care of, my grandchild or anything like that, I simply don't have time to date. And so we can kind of walk through those hesitations and getting really kind of honest and grounded with yourself, if that is true, or if you're just saying that to avoid dating. As well as one of the very important things as a caregiver is managing guilt. That, oh my God, I feel horrible even thinking about dating or thinking about sex when I'm trying to take care of a parent who has Alzheimer's, or I'm trying to take care of a grandchild who's having issues, or things along the lines of that. So we'll talk about just kind of a brief overview, how to better manage that guilt, as well as, you guys know I love a plan. And as a coach and your coach, I love to give you guys a plan. All right. So like I'd said before, this is just a very general overview of dating as a caregiver. Everybody's caregiving situation is very unique and very different. So if you have just put an ailing parent into hospice care and their prognosis isn't even a month, your plan, obviously, as dating is going to be a little bit different. That prioritizing is going to be a little different than maybe somebody who has a grandchild or has an adult child who is maybe dealing with I'm not sure, who is dealing with like a shattered leg or something like that. So there's always going to be a couple of different situations, and then you are the best person. I can be here as your coach, I can be here as your mentor, giving you this overview information, but obviously you are the best person to make the decision what is best for you in this situation. Because what you're doing, caring for that person, is probably out of love. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But you, ultimately, it's going to be on you. I'm here to give you tools, but you are going to be the best person to make the decision for you. So something that I would invite you to do, and as anybody who's ever had to be a caregiver before, for example, my mom is severely physically disabled, and my older sister, who lives closer to her, has had to sacrifice some of the things that she deals with in order to be her caregiver. My partner's grandmother has been in and out of assisted living, and so having to juggle our schedule and remembering that we are a couple, we are other folks beyond our role as a caregiver. And so when we are getting grounded in how can I successfully date, or how can I successfully get ready for love while also caring for this person, for this loved one, the number one thing I would invite you all to remember is, besides the caregiver, who are you? You are a complete full person who still has sexual desires. You are a complete full person who still has professional things that you're working on, who still has romantic things, who still has different career goals that you're working on. And I know sometimes that can be very difficult to remember when you are dealing with, oh my gosh, my mom fell and I think she broke her hip again. Or, oh my gosh, my dad is getting kind of violent with his dementia and he threw something and he's never been like that before. Or my grandchild might have early onset, might have early cancer, and we're trying to figure that out. So yes, that is going on in your life, but I would definitely kind of invite you to remember that that is just a part of your life. Your life is a giant pie, and your role as a caregiver is a slice of that pie. It is a very important slice of that pie, because you're doing this incredible work based out of love, caring for a family member or loved one. But I would just kind of invite you to remember that is not all who you are. So in addition to that getting grounded in who are you beyond the role of a caregiver, why is this role important to you? Getting very, very grounded in, why is this act of caregiving? Why is this act of sacrificing your personal life? Maybe sometimes sacrificing your professional life. I know, for example, my older sister, she had a great job opportunity in another town with her and her husband, but she chose not to do that because she knew that her love and the relationship that she had with my mother was much stronger. And so it being very kind of grounded in love. And so I would definitely invite you all to get grounded as well as, why is this role of a caregiver so important to you? Is it because this is somebody who you love dearly, if it's an ailing parent, and you feel that you can give them better care than like a live-in nurse could? Is it because you have such a strong connection to them that you want to be there for them? Is it also because maybe you feel like a sense of duty? And why is that sense of duty there? Is it because there is kind of a family culture of, you always take care of people, you don't want your family member to be alone, kind of in an assisted living center? So just getting very grounded in why you are doing what you are doing. And I know sometimes with caregiving, we have a tendency to kind of we don't even stop to think about that, because as caregivers, a lot of times we are in reactionary mode. What can I do to make sure that my mother is not sitting there, unfortunately, after having soiled herself? What can I do? What happens if, my father is having like kind of a bout of violence or something like that with dementia, like something that my father deals with right now? And so it is just getting very grounded in, why are you doing what you are doing? Is it out of love? Is it out of obligation? Is it out of a sense of duty? Is it because you feel like that you might be their only option? And the reason that I would invite you all to think about that and getting very grounded in, well, why am I doing this? Why am I being a caregiver? Why am I sacrificing all these other things that I need to take care of with the other people in my family, with my own job, with trying to date again at midlife? And just being very aware of that. Because what I have seen as an auxiliary caregiver myself, as well as the folks who are primary caregivers in my family, as well as my circle, they tend to kind of skirt over that, which can happen. And so getting very grounded in why you are doing that is going to be very important, particularly if you were in a role in your family that you were just kind of the dutiful daughter. That, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to do this because nobody else in my family is going to. Because I know in this group, in this incredible Ready for Love group, we talk about that a lot, right? That, well, the role I always played was the daughter who did everything. The role I always played was the daughter who sacrificed moving away or sacrificed doing XYZ for myself to take care of my parents. And if that is something that you were doing that is grounded in love, awesome. But if it is something that you are doing because you feel like you have to, I would just kind of invite you to think about that and to sit with that and to think about, well, is that going to cause resentment for you? Because a caregiver, to be cared for by somebody who's just steaming with resentment, is not great for the caregiver or the person who needs the help. And so if you think that you are doing that out of a sense of duty, but you don't want to do it and you feel like you have to, that is definitely something I would invite you to just kind of think about and get grounded with. And if that is going to piss you off, if that is going to make you resentful, and if this person, when they leave this earth, if you are going to be full of bad memories that, well, I was for that person and they never thanked me, now would be the time to evaluate that and see how you can either change your mindset on that situation or how maybe you can outsource that situation. And we're going to get to that a little bit later. But just understand, it's what this a visionary named Simon Sinek, understand what is your why. Why are you doing that? And that why is going to help you get grounded. It's going to help you be abundant. It's going to help you feel that love, even in the hardest situations when they're screaming and maybe crying because they have dementia or Alzheimer's at 3 a.m. And that makes you feel stressed, and that might cause you to have to make sacrifices. Getting nevertheless very grounded in why you're doing what you're doing. And also getting very grounded in understanding that this is just a season in your life that isn't going to be forever. And in addition to that, understanding that this is only a part of you. This is not your entire identity. Now, if you had gone to hospice care, or if you were a nurse like that, maybe that would be a bigger part of your identity. But at the end of the day, this is a part of your life. You are doing it out of love. If you don't feel like you're doing it out of love and you are feeling resentful, like you're doing it out of an obligation and you're playing the family role, the dutiful daughter, take a step back. Talk to me as your coach. I am your coach. Those are the things that we deal with. And kind of get that mindset shifted a little bit to be able to do the work that you want to do, caring for a loved one, as well as, what are we here for? Finding love and dating. And so that brings us to the next topic when we are talking about how to date as a caregiver. Setting boundaries. Now, you ladies know that I love talking about boundaries. I probably love boundaries too much. You guys know that I have no problem telling people to fuck off, but sometimes that doesn't serve me well. So what does that mean in terms of if you guys are acting as caregivers for members of your family? So I would invite you, as you learn how to navigate dating while you're being a caregiver, to set 2 sets of boundaries. So the first set of boundaries is boundaries with that loved one that you are caring for. And you might say, but Martha, they're dealing with, they're down the highway of dementia town, like my father is right now. Or, she had my mother had an amputation, how am I supposed to, and she won't let the nurse, put on her prosthetic. Also a situation that I'm dealing with in my family. This is not the Martha therapy session though. So I would encourage you, though, if you are that primary caregiver or even an auxiliary caregiver, it is absolutely crucial to set boundaries with that person that you are caring for. Now, we're going to talk about boundaries as a dater in the next slide, but let's talk about this for a second. So if you are actively caring for a family member, whether that is an ailing parent, whether that is a sick adult child, whether that is you're taking care of a grandchild, any of those, something that I would invite you to do, if they are coherent, and if they're not, working with, if you guys have like a social worker who's helping you, if you guys have like a nurse who comes in, like a home health care, I would invite you to make that list of the must-dos each week, each month, even each day. If it's you and the person who's cohesive, who you guys can have that conversation with, you can make it with them. If there's other help there, such as a home healthcare person, CNA, caseworker, you can make it with them. And so that is looking at what are the things that I absolutely need to do as a caregiver in this situation. Is it that my mother is going to need help going to her physical therapy appointment? Is it my father is going to need help and he's going to need somebody to take him to his neurology appointment? Is it, my daughter, maybe she's dealing with early on stage breast cancer, and I volunteered to go and get her medication or take her to chemo or take her to radiation. And so identifying with that person, if they are cohesive and they are kind of in a cognitive ability to have that conversation, what are the must-dos? If they're not, if you are working with a caseworker, if you're working with a nurse, and identify those. After you identify whatever those must-dos are to care for that person for that week, I want you to identify the things that you absolutely have to do. So if your mother, she's going through dementia or Alzheimer's and she freaks out if anybody else drives her and she gets scared. So you're like, I know I need to do that. Then you're like, okay, I cannot outsource this. However, if it's something such as, well, somebody needs to go and pick up my father's medication, you can outsource that. You can delegate that. You are not responsible for every single thing as a caregiver. You don't have to do that. Because if you are going to be responsible and you're having to do all these things and you're kind of that single point person and caring for that person, you are going to burn out like that. You are going to get resentful like that. And when you have burnout and resentment, you are not in a good place to take care of that person. Because remember, when we are acting as caregivers, we are doing it out of love. And if your glass is completely empty and you don't have anything to give because you're overwhelmed, you're not doing much for you. And unfortunately, it's going to be a very hard situation for you to try to take care of that person that you are there for. So get very clear on what you absolutely must have to do, and then what you can outsource, whether it's with other family members, whether it is with a certified nursing assistant, whether it's with home health care, whether it's with anybody like that. Because also something I want you guys to remember is, and this is something that I've dealt with with my mother, is she'll be very insistent. Well, no, I don't want home health care here. I want somebody to put my prosthetic on for me. And so sometimes when you're dealing with people who, that person who doesn't want anybody else to help them, I would invite you to understand where that's coming from. And unfortunately, that is coming from them playing into a family dynamic that no longer serves you. Because what I've seen in my own experience as a caregiver is a lot of times parents, even in their 80s and 90s, yeah, they know that you're a grown person who is trying to take care of them. They are going to revert back to, I am the mother, I am going to tell you what to do. And something I would really kind of invite you guys to get very solid on is to remember to practice those healthy boundaries. Because in this situation, you are kind of the parent, you are the caregiver, and you are the one who has the right to figure out how to best care for that person if they are not necessarily kind of in a mentally, how do I want to say this, kind of mentally cohesive state. And so being very careful with that, of not falling back into a role of, okay, yes, mom, okay. No, you're a grown-ass person who is doing this out of love. You have the resources, you have the ability to delegate and outsource. And by all means, exercise that and use that. And so if you guys do have any issues with that, or you're struggling with that, please let me know in our one-on-ones, or we can, take some questions on that after this mini session, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But I just really want you guys to remember that you are the one who gets to set the boundaries in this, because you are the caregiver and you are doing this out of love, and you don't have to go back into those family roles, especially if that person that you're caring for is not, it doesn't recognize that, that you're the adult, and you're trying to figure this out. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about setting boundaries with the person that you're caring for. Something else I would invite you to think about is setting boundaries for yourself and really kind of getting disciplined, because what we talked about beforehand is when you're a caregiver, whether it's for kind of acute care, whether it's for if your loved one has like a chronic condition, whether it's something that, oh my gosh, they went into hospice care. Any of those kinds of treks within kind of the caregiving kind of life cycle, so to speak, is going to be taxing on you. It doesn't matter if your dad had a stroke and he's in the hospital for 7 days, and that's stressful, and you're trying to take care of him and advocate for him with the nurses, or your mother has been kind of at the same level and the same stage for dementia, for Alzheimer's, for months or maybe years, or your grandparent, or maybe like a grandchild who had cancer or something has been put into hospice. Any of those life cycles is going to require you guys take care of yourselves. And taking care of yourselves means boundaries. And boundaries in this situation mean blocking out times for yourself that are self-care, that are non-negotiable, that are getting that workout in if you're feeling frustrated, that are getting to bed early because you know that maybe your mom, who you're taking care of, wakes up really afraid and she's shouting in the middle of the night. Or, if you have a parent who maybe needs help with movement and they need help in their wheelchair. And so in the middle of the night. So getting that sleep, you need to have that, because you cannot take care of them if you are run ragged. You can't take care of them well. So that is absolutely crucial for you. In addition to that, because remember, we're here for dating, you are still a living, breathing person who is thinking about love, is thinking about sex, is thinking about all these other things. And so if that is important to you within kind of the caregiving cycle, I would definitely invite you to, on your calendar, whether it's monthly, whether it's a weekly calendar, block out times that you want to date and you want to socialize. And I do understand that everybody's case is different. If your mother just entered hospice and her prognosis is 3 weeks, maybe you're not going on dates then. But if it's something that, okay, I'm taking care of an adult daughter who's having cancer treatment, but they got her, they got the tumor at stage 1. She's going to be tired, a little bit tired, in the morning. I'm going to take her to radiation, but then she's like, hey, I want you to go, I'm fine. Believe her. And then, okay, I think maybe I want to go on a date. Maybe I can set aside an hour a week when home health care is there. Or maybe I can set aside an hour a week when my sister is taking my mother to physical therapy, or something along the lines of that. But just also knowing that if you are a long-term caregiver, you deserve and you have the right to block out those times for socializing and for dating. But then also knowing that is going to change depending on your situation. So just, you are going to know your schedule the best. You are going to know your situation with the person you're caring for the best, but understanding that your life does not end and your life does not really have to be put on pause if you are a long-term caregiver. And the person that you're going to be giving care to is going to understand that. They understand that they love you, you love them. They're going to understand that. And understanding the power of delegation, the power of outsourcing. You don't have to be the round-the-clock person if you don't want to. That's what home health care is for. That's what CNA is for. That's what the Medicare can cover that for, for your loved one, or, those programs that they're most likely on. So understanding not all of this falls on you. And you, in the realm of a caregiver, if you are still prioritizing dating, you do have the right to put that in your schedule and be conscious of it. Understand that your life does not end, and the loved one that you're caring for knows that. So when we are taking a look at how am I going to take care of myself while I'm caring for a loved one, if I do still want to prioritize dating, excuse me, what does that look like as a caregiver? And remember, and I think I've told you guys this before, if it is not scheduled, if it is not written, it is not scheduled. So if you're like, oh yeah, maybe I want to go to that hour-long mixer that my friend told me about. Oh, and yeah, the home health care can come at that time to take care of my mom. You need to commit to that, or else you're going to make an excuse to not do it. So that's something I would invite you to think about as well, as you have the boundaries with the person you're caring about. You have the boundaries for yourself with your self-care, as well as if you do want to make dating a priority. Now, this is by no means saying, leave your mom in the hospice while you go out on a singles cruise. That is not what I'm saying, you guys. But it is understanding that if it is a long-term thing that is manageable, and it will be because you have outsourced it and you have delegated it, you are able to create that time. Even if it's just an hour a week, even if it's just a half an hour a week, to research, oh, I know that the home health care is going to be here on a Saturday. What could I do on a Saturday that is a hiking for singles or something like that? I might need a caregiver with this cough. We'll see. And so something I would invite you guys to think about as well is getting very honest with yourself, and then also getting very honest when the time comes that you guys are that you guys are going on a date, which I know is going to be soon. To not hurt your ears, guys, I'm going to put this on mute really fast because I have a cough I have to get out, but I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. No caregiver needed. So something that I have seen happen with clients before, and these are not any of you lovely ladies, although I know that you guys are dealing with your own kind of various kind of caregiver situations. But what I have seen in the past with prior clients is if they were taking care of their mother or taking care of their father, what they would say is, well, I'm the caregiver, so I don't have time to date. I just can't do it. And I would invite you all to kind of just be a little bit curious with that. Now, obviously, there are going to be situations as a caregiver that, yeah, you're not going to be able to date. If your mom's oxygen levels like plummeted and she had to go to the emergency room and, she's being monitored overnight or for 2 nights, yeah, you're probably not going to, be able to like go on a date then, or, go to the singles event or go to the singles hiking group. If for some reason that, your father was rushed to the hospital because he had another stroke, yeah, that might be talking to the nurses and things like that, and not necessarily looking at what can I sign up for to do a holiday singles event like for Christmas. So that is something to think about. But then there's going to be more of these kind of, I would call them kind of like static situations as a caregiver, that you have the home health care, you have the physical therapist, you have the other people who are helping you out. And if they are there, which they will be because you have outsourced it, because you listened to, to this, to this session, if you still find yourself saying, well, I just can't date. Oh, I just don't have that time to date. I don't have the time to date. I can't do this. I'm a caregiver. I'm a caregiver. I'm a caregiver. I would just kind of invite you to maybe get curious with that. Is that absolutely true? And, maybe if your parents have been put into hospice care, yeah, that maybe that is true. But at least ask yourself that question. But if you're, if say, your daughter, let's say your adult daughter has been getting treated for breast cancer and she's almost done with her radiation, and you've been kind of helping her get her medication and stuff like that, if you're saying, well, I can't date because my daughter, and your grown ass daughter is like, Mom, I'm going to be fine. We're good. Go date. Then it is kind of being very honest with yourself on that, but understanding and really showing compassion for yourself that, yeah, there will be times that socializing and dating are going to come second, third, fourth, maybe even 17th on your list as a caregiver. But knowing that's not going to be all the time. It won't. And so just getting very honest and very in tune and very mindful of, are you telling yourself that you can't date and you can't socialize because you're being a caregiver? Okay, is that really true? Because, your mother's in hospice. Okay. But are you maybe just saying that sometimes as an excuse not to date because you think that dating's icky and you're afraid and all of that stuff, which you won't be by the end of Ready for Love. So we all know that, right? And then in addition, if you are talking to somebody, or, you've been thinking of getting together with your coworker for a glass of wine that you find attractive or something like that, what you will find is people are actually very sympathetic to what's going on. But let me caveat this. You have the right to share what you're comfortable with other people. So let's say that you were going to go on a blind date and your mother fell and, she injured herself again. And so you have to take her to the emergency room. If, you have to cancel the blind date, you can say, hey, there's a family situation. I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule this? If you've been going on a date with somebody that you like, for a couple times, you absolutely have, you can do that if you're comfortable with. You can say, you know what, I just want you to know that I want to be honest with you. I want to communicate with you that I am the primary caregiver, or I'm an auxiliary caregiver to my family member who's having these issues. Sometimes I might have to cancel. I just want you to know, but I still am interested in seeing you. I hope you understand. And when you communicate with people, if you're comfortable doing it, we don't ever want you to like force yourself to share information that you don't want to share. But if you're comfortable doing that, it's okay to share that with people, because for every one situation that you guys are dealing with caring for a family member, whether it's an alien parent, like I'd mentioned, my father's, kind of early onset dementia, and my mother is an amputee with some other various issues that my siblings and I are dealing with. I have a client whose grandchild actually has childhood cancer, and dealing with that. And so whatever situation that you are dealing with, just know that you're in a community of people who understand it, who are dealing with the same thing. Because unfortunately, that's what being midlife is. I call it the sandwich generation, that you're taking care of ailing, aging parents, but then you're also having to take care of your kids and worrying about the things that they're dealing with, and maybe even your grandkids. And so I want you to know that you're not alone. And when you're out there dating, socializing, and if you have a wrench, because that's life as a caregiver, you can share that with the person if you're comfortable sharing that. And if they're going to be a jerk and be like, oh, you're lying to me, then to hell with them. You don't want to be dating somebody like that anyway. But 99.9% of the time, if you share that, people are going to be empathetic, because chances are they're going through things like that are very, very similar. So something that I know that a lot of caregivers deal with is guilt. That, well, I feel guilty for wanting to date. I feel guilty for going, for talking to a nice gentleman. I feel guilty for going to a mixer when I know that I don't know if this Christmas is my mother's last Christmas, or I don't know if my daughter, who might have breast cancer, is going to be sick and she's vomiting and I'm not there for her. And so we always have these things of guilt, that I don't feel like I should be having fun or living my life because this person that I love, that I'm caring for, is suffering. And so congratulations, you are human, because that's a very common emotion to have when we are caring for people, especially when that family dynamics change. That if you're the adult and you're trying to take care of a parent who has soiled themselves, that can be, that's very emotional. And, you're like, well, this was my parent, I can't believe I'm seeing them like this. And so we do deal with guilt as caregivers. So let me just kind of invite you and offer this to you if it's helpful when you're trying to manage that guilt as a caregiver. And you're like, well, who am I to think about going on a date, when my parent is ailing or whatever? I would offer you 3 things on managing guilt. Grace. What you are doing is not easy, and you're doing a damn good job of it nevertheless. I would offer you self-compassion, because there is no way that you're going to get through this and not have a nervous breakdown if you are not taking time for yourself to rest, to recuperate. Because you're not going to be good to anybody, especially the person that you're giving that care to, if you're feeling run ragged, if you're not getting the sleep, if you're not happy. And then, as well as awareness of going back into old roles that are no longer serving you. Now, this is something that I deal with a lot with my ailing parents, and I know that my siblings deal a lot with as well. That it's very, well, you have to take care of me because I'm your mother, and do this, when they very much might not have kind of the knowledge that, maybe their younger children do, and the younger children are taking care of them. And so that is just kind of something I would invite you to think about, is just not falling back into those roles as kind of the child who's trying to please the parent. Or if maybe your parents were not kind, and maybe your parents were a little bit of abusive, and that might be getting triggered, just becoming very aware of that you also have the ability and the right to exercise boundaries, even if the parent is ailing. They don't get the carte blanche to talk ill to you, to be abusive to you, just because they're ailing. That's not how it works. And so also understanding that if you were kind of that dutiful daughter, and I know that we've always talked about that, being very aware of, are you going into that role again of, I am making the sacrifices, I am doing this, I'm doing all of that for my family, and I'm not doing anything for myself, etc. And if you find yourself kind of going back into that dutiful daughter role, and if you find yourself almost kind of playing the martyr, that, well, I'm the only one who does anything, I'm the one who makes all the sacrifices, and I never get thanked for it, I would just kind of invite you to get curious about that. Just, why am I doing that? Am I falling back into that role because it's comfortable? Am I falling back into that role because I like it? Chances are you don't. And so if you do find yourself going back into that, thinking, how can I actually feel good about this? How can I actually tell this guilt to go to hell and deal with this in the way that I know how? How do I want to be a caregiver and manage the guilt, but still make that time for myself? Because when you make time for yourself and your own healing and your own life, you are going to be a better caregiver to that person that you're taking care of. So when we're looking at some homework, because you guys know that it wouldn't be a session without good old Coach Martha Bodyfelt, unless there was homework. And so a couple of things that I would kind of invite you guys to think about, especially for those of you who are either actively serving as caregivers right now, or you might see a situation in the very near future where you might be acting as a caregiver. And maybe even if you're not the primary caregiver, let's say you come from like a big family like I do, where my older sister is going to be the primary caregiver because she lives in that town and I live like 3,000 miles away at this point. But even if you're going to be kind of the auxiliary caregiver or secondary caregiver, I would invite you guys to really get grounded in these ideas. And so the homework on that is I would invite you to reflect on the why. Why are you being the caregiver? Why are you the person stepping in to help your parents or to help a sick child or a grandchild out? Why are you doing that? Is it out of love? I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping that you are doing that because you have such love and such respect for that person that that is kind of your service to them. That is your love and action to them. That's great. Another why might be, well, it's just my sense of duty. Shit, they're my parent. I kind of feel like I have to. And that's okay too. But I would just kind of invite you to just to be at peace with that. And if you can't be at peace, get curious why you can't. Or is it also, well, this is my cultural duty? I hear that a lot, that, oh, there's always this idea of it is the daughter who has to be the one to take care of the parents. And if it's a sense of duty, is that something you like? And if it's not, what do you want to do about that? So just kind of getting curious at the why without just automatically going into kind of robot caregiver mode. In addition to that, I would invite you to identify the areas where you need assistance as a caregiver. You guys are all super women, but even super women can't do it all themselves. Being a caregiver, you guys are still working, you're trying to date, you're dealing with your adult children, you're doing all the things. And you shouldn't have to do all the things, especially when it comes to being the caregiver. So I would invite you to kind of think about, if you are an active caregiver right now, or if you see being one in the near future, to kind of think about, what are some things that I know that I'm going to need to outsource and delegate? Am I going to need to hire home health care to come in and take the person to take the blood for my parent, or to change out whatever, can I actually employ somebody to help me pick up their medication? So just getting very, very clear on what are the things that you absolutely need to do and that you want to do in your role, and what else can you outsource? Because you don't have to do everything. You can always delegate things. Maybe you can't delegate everything, but you don't have to do everything. Also, getting very clear and intentional on what you would like your dating life to look like when you are being a caregiver. If it's, I know home health care is going to come and take care of my mom on Saturdays between noon to 5. So I know that I can consciously make that decision to go to that brunch with my friends, or to go to that singles hike at the nearby park, or to go on that date because that nice gentleman asked me out and I say I can do a lunch date. So just get very clear and intentional on what you want that to look like. Obviously, your situations are going to be different. If somebody goes into hospice care, if somebody has to go to the emergency room, yeah, that is going to look a little bit different. And just being aware of that. And then in addition to that, is for your homework, is I would encourage you to schedule in the times you will dedicate to dating vis-a-vis your time as a caregiver. So if you know that, hey, I know I'm going to need to take care of my mom, and I know I'm going to, she gets kind of finicky or whatever. And so I want to be there for her and actually spend the night between, going from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., but then knowing maybe the day after, hey, I think I can actually do a lunch date with that gentleman. So just plotting what that looks like for you. But then knowing that this is just kind of like a very overarching view, and you guys are going to know your situations the best. But for me, as your dating coach, what I would just kind of offer is understanding that the work that you were doing for your parent or the other loved one, that is sacred work. That is work that you are doing out of love, and getting very grounded in that. And then also knowing that you don't have to do everything. And then also knowing that during this whole time, especially knowing that you don't have to do everything, and you have the right and you have the responsibility to still carve out that time for yourself and set those boundaries and put that schedule to when you want to date and what hours of the month do you want to dedicate to that, because your life goes on. And I want you to remember that you're doing this out of love, but then also remembering that you also have the right to pursue love at the same time. So that's all I have. You guys know where to find me. If there are any specific questions that you guys would like to, bring up, right now, we have about 15 minutes that we can talk about that. Or otherwise, if there's some personal things that, you're not comfortable sharing with the group, we can talk about that during our one-on-ones, or you guys can always shoot me a text and we can, we can certainly figure that out. So that is what I have. Thank you guys. And I'm happy to be on for, the next 15 minutes or so if anybody has any questions.
So Martha, are you saying that if you don't want to be a caregiver,